Our meeting tonight is dealing with the restoration of the old St. John's Baptist Church Cemetery. And we're going to have several speakers that will be sharing information tonight. Let me give you a little background before we get started. The old St. John's Cemetery was deeded to Calvary Baptist Church in Kilmarnock, Mount Vernon in Whitestone, New St. John's Baptist in Kilmarnock, as well as Sharon Baptist Church in Weems. When the old St. John's Baptist Church closed. But the most recent deed and surveys was done in 1976. It is estimated that at least 200 persons are buried there. And most burials were from the late 1800s to the late 1900s.
Where was the church? Where? Yeah.
What was the old St. John's Church?
Name?
Yeah, where? Where was it located? Down Harris Road?
Right there where the cemetery is.
Okay.
It's in that area.
The cemetery is on Harris Road in Kilmarnock.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
right
where
around
you
Harris
turn up
Road.
like Grace?
A little past Interfaith.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to have several presenters tonight, and I'm going to give you a little information about each of the presenters. And some of them are on Zoom, so we're going to ask them at the time that they're going to present if they would unmute themselves. So right now everyone is muted except for us. The first presenter is Joanna Green. She's with us via Zoom. She's an archaeologist for the Cemetery Preservation, Virginia Department of Historic Resources. She will be speaking about VDHR's work in restoring this historic Black cemetery and other Black cemeteries, and her observations and recommendations for the old St. John's Cemetery. Then we have Reverend Brenda Campbell. She's retired funeral director at family-owned Campbell Funeral Home in Kilmarnock. I'm reading, but you're not retired apparently. She's a member of Calvary Baptist Church, and she will be speaking on what she knows about the cemetery and the people who are buried there. Then we have Francine Hunter. And Francine is retired occupational therapist, a descendant of Armstead Nickens, who is a Black representative of Lancaster County in the House of Delegates from 1871 to 1875. She's worked to get recognition for her ancestor. She's a member of Willow Chapel Baptist Church, and they brought VHR in to help with the restoration of the old St. John's Cemetery, and she's been providing her expertise, guidance, and passion to help continue guide this process. Now we have other individuals that are on Zoom with us as well, such as Dr. Jimmy Norris.
He's on the screen right now.
As you can see him up there on the screen. He began this effort at about 2010 to restore the old St. John's Cemetery. He lives in New York City, and his family were members of Calvary Baptist Church. Then we have Miss Peggy Hill. Now, she's a licensed genealogist and formerly active with the Lancaster, Virginia Historical Society. She's a co-author of a book called In Remembrance, Gravestone Inscriptions and Burials of Lancaster County, Virginia, which was in 2002. She and her late husband, John Hill, former Lancaster County zoning officer, visited the cemeteries in Lancaster County and transcribed the gravestones. Peggy continues to help with the old St. John's restoration. She's a friend of Jimmy Norris for more than 20 years. And she's a member of Campbell Memorial Presbyterian Church. Then we have Sandra Smyer. Hope I pronounced that correct. Smyer.
Here.
She's here in person. She's a retired Lancaster middle school teacher. She taught Francine Hunter.
Yes, she did.
And she continues her involvement in the cemetery restoration project, beginning with Dr. Jimmy Norris's efforts. And she's a member of Sharon Baptist Church. Then we have Mr. Bill Lee. He serves on the Board of Supervisors in Lancaster County. He's a friend of Jimmy Norris. He's helping with the restoration efforts. He's a member of Calvary Baptist Church and also representing the Calvary Baptist Church Pastor Samuel Kane, who is out of town and can't be here. And Mr. Gernard Reed, I don't see him on the call. He may come in a little later.
I don't think he can be here.
Okay. But he's the current pastor of Mount Vernon Baptist Church. So there's a lot on our agenda, and we're hopeful that questions will be asked and that we are, I'm sure, going to be engaging. Amen? So we're going to start with, who are we starting with? Brenda?
Joanna.
Oh, Joanna. Okay, Ms. Joanna Green.
My name is Joanna Green. I'm an archaeologist with the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, and I focus on assisting communities with preserving the cemeteries that are important to them. I've been doing the work for about 30 years now in both West Virginia and Virginia. Up until about 3 years ago, the cemetery preservation position in my office did not even exist. It was created by the General Assembly in recognition of an enormous uptick in interest at the community level in cemetery identification and documentation and preservation. And I was lucky enough to be put in that position, and that's what I've been focusing on doing ever since. My background is in physical anthropology, the study of human skeletal remains, but my research interest has always been in the places where people choose to bury their dead and the ways that they express their care and consideration both for the family members and for the sacred spaces that they create in the act of burying them. So I've been in and out of cemeteries all over Virginia, and recently had the opportunity to visit Old St. John's with my good friend Francine Hunter, who is the reason that I'm here. And what we found out there was frankly extraordinary. I'm looking forward to working with your community to do whatever I can to help with the effort for restoration. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen real quick. This is the record for Old St. John's Church that was created in 1997 as a result of a cost share survey in Lancaster County. That appears to be the first and only time that the cemetery has been formally documented. As you can see, the boundaries are fairly large. For some reason, they do not encompass the two smaller visible cemetery areas that are up against the side of the road. I don't know why. And the information in the document is very minimal with regard to the history of the cemetery, to the extent of the cemetery. It's a very limited document. So one of our focuses in this office is to update the document that lives in our GIS database to be more comprehensive, to better reflect the totality of the space and the history of its use and the living community that is associated with it. So that's something that I'm working on right now, and I'm looking forward to sharing with those of you who are interested and can help me make sure that the information is correct and comprehensive. But this, again, this is the documented extent of the cemetery based on limited visual observation in 1997. This is what we think we're actually dealing with based on our site visit. And this was a very quick walkover. This was not comprehensive in the slightest, but based on my colleagues' observations and my observations, the cemetery is probably about 15 acres in size, and it is absolutely full. The farther you walk back into the forest and away from the road, the more depressions you see, the more headstones that you see. Now that spring is here, I'm sure the flowering bulbs are out, and it's becoming very evident that this is an extensive funerary landscape. Of course, the tree cover and the underbrush and the leaf litter make it kind of hard to see, but I think that we've got a much larger landscape here than was originally documented in 97. Part of that is explained by the topography of the area. There is a pretty deeply cut ravine that runs along the north side and curves around to the west of the cemetery, which forms a pretty strong physical boundary for that edge of the cemetery, but the graves run all the way up to it and down the slope in some cases. To the south and to the east, it's a fairly level terrace and just exactly what you would expect to find in a cemetery landscape. So efforts to identify the boundaries of this resource should focus on the areas that don't have a geographical boundary to them. They don't have drop off or something else that would have limited their use in that regard. And I think if we can focus on this area with enough people, we should be able to get a better handle on the full extent of this cemetery. It's going to take a lot of walking and a lot of documentation, but it can absolutely be done. There's a wide variety of resources that we found while we were out there. There, again, are two visible, cleared cemetery areas near the road. Those can be documented without much trouble, and they appear to be in fairly recent use. It's the ones that you find when you get back into the woods that are going to be harder to locate and document, and we can talk more about what that effort might entail, how to do it safely, how to do it in a fashion that the information can be retained. This is one of the larger cemeteries that I've seen in a community, but I don't think that should stop anybody from attempting to get a better understanding of its extent and its contents, and trying to find a way to relocate these graves on the landscape to have a better sense of how the landscape itself evolved. And that's pretty much all that I had prepared to tell you. I basically came here to answer questions and try to do what I could to provide information for you. This is my contact information, and if you can't remember it, or if you don't have something to write it down with, please get in touch with Francine. She can find me, and she'd be, I'm sure, more than happy to put you in touch with me directly. At the bottom is the address for our African American Cemeteries and Graves Fund. That's a dedicated mailbox for inquiries, for applications, for just contact that you need to make with the program. I am no longer managing that program. My colleague Angel Williams is managing it now. She's extremely efficient and dedicated. I think you'll enjoy working with her. If you have questions about the fund, if you know of a cemetery that you think would be eligible for funding, please get in touch with us. Our grant cycle ends on May 31st of this year. We are almost out of money already, but the new cycle starts on July 1st, and the General Assembly has been rather gracious with us with regard to our line item of funding for the coming fiscal year, and I would be delighted to see more of it go toward Lancaster County. So again, please feel free to get in touch with me, to get in touch with Angel through the dedicated funding mailbox, and we'll see what we can do to hook you up with some funding.
Great, thank you so much. Let's give her a hand.
Absolutely. Questions, anybody? I'm
Would you
here to
read-
answer whatever questions you have, or at least tell you I don't know.
Okay, any questions for her?
I got a question.
Yes.
What basis do you have, you looked at for as your boundary lines?
Would you say that again, please, sir?
How are your boundary lines established? I think you started off saying you all think it's like 15 acres in there. So I was trying, the blue line that you got, I was trying to visualize that with what I see when I go up there. So I'm wondering how that got established. How did you all come up with that?
That is That is conjectural. It's based again on the presence of that deep ravine that goes around two sides of that landform and forms a natural barrier. But the southern side, I drew it up against a logging road that apparently runs along a property line. And then the other side up against the road. And again, there could be graves outside of those lines. That's just, again, it's my best guess based on what we saw in the limited time we were able to be back in the woods in that area.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How do you reconcile your estimate of 15 acres where we actually have a plat showing that it is 3.69 acres? I don't have a copy of the plat in front of me, but the plat was done by Mr. Keyser some years ago. So how do you reconcile that?
I don't. Again, the boundaries that I drew were conjectural based on what I saw out in the woods. And I haven't seen the plat. I'd love to see the plat to see what's on record for the cemetery. But again, this is just my best guess based on observation. It's not based on any documentation at all.
Any other
I
questions?
think we're going to have to get a surveyor to go in there and survey the area, don't you think, before we start doing anything?
I think we probably should get out there and come to some agreement on where we think the limits, or where the community thinks the limits of the cemetery are, and then you can direct a surveyor to reestablish those more formally than I did. But that's something we can help you with.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is it unusual for a cemetery of this nature to have surveyed boundaries which don't necessarily coincide with the land as it was actually used for cemetery?
No, not at all. No, cemeteries tend to be organic in that regard. I think that we've seen many instances across the state where a parcel of land was physically mapped and set aside, but the process of burial exceeded the mapped boundaries, and graves were found outside of fences and outside of walls and outside of other hard established legal boundaries. People bury where they want to bury, and they don't always look at maps.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, at the risk of opening up Pandora's box, because originally there were 4 churches identified as being owners of the property back in 1800s or what have you, has the ownership been definitively established with regard to those 4 churches and a deed that is currently in place and viable?
That I don't know. I have not seen the deed trace for the property. That would be a very good thing to nail down before anything specific happens out there. Make sure that, again, you've got the landowner's permission to do work on their property, so we need to know who the landowners are. If you have anyone in your congregation who has a background in title research or genealogy or any other kind of research who can spend a little time at the courthouse and trace the deeds for this, I think it would be a really good idea to nail that down as closely as you can.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the deed lists 4 churches, so we got documentation.
Good, great. Any other questions?
Would you kindly ask her if she'll be remaining on for the rest of the historical presentation?
Will you stay on the line with us while we're for the other presentations? Will you be on the line for the other presentations?
I can stay on for a little while longer. I have an 8-year-old here who needs to eat dinner, so but I'll stay on as long as I can.
We appreciate your sacrifice.
But thank you, everyone. I do appreciate your time and attention. And again, if you have questions or if there's anything that I can do while discussions continue within your community, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you so much. Now we will have Reverend Brenda Campbell that's going to come and share her extensive knowledge.
I'm retired.
You don't get off that easy.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Hello, everyone. Hello. I am here, I believe, because I'm probably the oldest person to have gone through any cemeteries here in Lancaster, Northumberland County. My father was the funeral director here, and my mother was a teacher in the county in Lancaster, and he was my babysitter. So whenever we had a service, I would have to go along with him. So from age 4 and up, I've been in and out of cemeteries. I need to say that I am the granddaughter of Armistead S. Nickens, who we have recognized and still trying to recognize him. And I am here, and I have 2 other friends that have come to help clear up a matter that I had been adamant about the Old St. John Cemetery. First of all, I have to say that it was the St. John Baptist Church Cemetery. And in record, it was named Old St. John because St. John Baptist Church moved to Kilmarnock. But there was a church actually there on site where this Old St. John Cemetery is. That's where St. John Baptist Church was. And when the members decided to build another church in Kilmarnock, which is now New St. John Baptist Church, then the name got changed to Old St. John Cemetery. I believe that's what happened. The church was there, and I think that maybe I have a couple of family members here that may give us an idea of where the where the church was on that property. There are probably about 200 graves there. Some names I can recognize and I do remember. Part of the cemetery that I later found out is part of Old St. John Cemetery now is the Sigger side. I think that's on the map. I was always told that the Sigger family cemetery was not a part of Old St. John Cemetery. But I found out recently that maybe it is a part of Old St. John Cemetery, but it was a section that the church let the Sigger family use and bury their family members in it. And that's off to the side of Old St. John Cemetery. Now I have 2 of the Sigger grandchildren here. One says that maybe he can remember an area of where a foundation was for the old church. He doesn't remember the old church because he's not that old. But he might be able to help us see the foundation to the old church. But that's the reason. The 4 churches used that cemetery because they did not have cemeteries at their churches. So when everybody and they came out of St. John Baptist Church. So when they had loss in their family, they would come back and bury them at Old St. John. because the new church is Sharon, Mount Vernon, Calvary, and New St. John. They didn't have cemeteries on their land at that particular time. Now each of those churches have their own cemeteries. I'd like to ask one of the Seegers so that we can clear this matter up. Mr. Taylor, did you want to say something about your grandparents telling you about your property?
Excuse me, my name is Austin Taylor, and my grandparents and great-grandparents are buried in the section where it says Seeger's family. It's come around the road, and as far as I know of, thank you, as far as I know, the land there was part of a lot that was given to the family, not separately from Old St. John Cemetery, but a part of, just giving the family a lot to place our family at. I was born and raised in Baltimore, but as I came down, I was learning some of my family history through my grandmother, my aunts and uncles. But I had never personally seen the foundation from where it is. But I have traveled back through the woods and seen a lot of the grave sites and all back there. And whatever we can do to try to preserve it, it would be great and be appreciated throughout the community.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Seeger?
Thomas.
Good evening, my name is Thomas Seeger. It's pretty much what Austin said, just wrap my brain around with it. I was born next door to that graveyard, used to hunt in those woods. If you walk from Harris Road, where the curb breaks, straight into the woods, down a ways and to the left. If I remember in the years back, there was a foundation there, a building or something that used to be there. Now today, I'm not sure. But that's as close as I can remember. Now, how big the graveyard is, and I don't understand it not being documented, and I don't. But I don't know how to go about that. How would you mark that off? How no one knows. So, and she said, the lady earlier said, I know the ravine she's talking. We used to sail little boats down there. And but that road is recent. I think loggers cut that road through there. I'm not sure if that was part of Old St. John's property. I know some of you guys are familiar with the Interfaith building. That road runs through the woods back past that building. So that cemetery could too, really. If you go, like I said, you can't go but so far before the ravine, real deep. So, like if you were gonna bury someone, you wouldn't go, down the hill. That's all I can say. Whatever I can do, I'll do. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Do you have any?
I have a question, like where the Interfaith warehouse is, would that possibly, okay. My question is, where the Interfaith warehouse is, would that possibly have been built on cemetery land that they didn't know people were there even?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure of that side of the boundary.
That's too far.
It's too far from the graveyard.
Okay.
Where the Interfaith building is.
Okay, thank you.
I do know that there is another family cemetery behind Old St. John Cemetery, and that was the Jacksons. Maybe Dr. Norris would remember Mr. Cephas Jackson and his family. They were living back behind Old St. John, and today I think if you went up on the hill behind can't think.
Road that used
Right.
to be behind,
Right.
beside Teresa and Jake Cox.
Behind
Road
Jake
going
and
up
Teresa,
there.
there's a road that goes up through there. And that also stretches around to the old St. John Cemetery. But that was the Jackson family cemetery, as far as I can remember. As far as I can remember. So,
I'd like to comment on that, Brenda. I think you're correct. And there was another gentleman named Mr. Travis Robinson, who had a large family. He had, I've forgotten how many children he had. But I think his burial ground for his family was either adjacent or tied in with Mr. Jackson's family burial ground. So that's the reason I think we really have to get a surveyor, a good surveyor, to go in there and delineate whose property is whose, and exactly the boundaries of the old St. John Cemetery.
okay, thank you. And Mr. Robbins, Mr. Travis Robbins is the grandfather of Dr. Rodney Waller. And he told me that his grandparents were back there also.
I have a question. When coming on Harris from the hospital,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
it on the right-hand side before Interfaith?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
It is.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you, and you can see it from the road?
Part of it. You have to like turn
A
off.
little semicircular road called Calvary. Is that right, Brenda?
Pardon me?
Isn't the road called Calvary? Calvary Lane.
Calvary Lane.
Okay.
And that has a sign on it.
Oh, okay.
It's a little curved road.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else who's on Zoom that have a question? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give her a hand. And now I want to present Ms. Francine Hunter, who's going to share her information, and then we'll open the floor for additional questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As Dr. Williams shared, I'm Francine Ates Hunter. Many of you all may know my family, the Ates children, and of course we are members of the Nickens family. My introduction to this project came via our relative, Dr. Jimmy Norris. He approached me, I would say, maybe during the early part of the summer about this restoration project. And you all know when Dr. Jimmy Norris asks you for assistance, then you do your best to do whatever you can to assist. Before we go any further, would you all kindly mind if we just take a sacred moment of silence for this very highly regarded sacred topic in honor of our ancestors, beloved loved ones, and those who served in the military to protect this country. Thank you very much. I do have a PowerPoint presentation prepared, and like Dr. Nelson, Dr. Williams, I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing. I reached out to Joanna Green from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, and we consulted for a site visit. Our initial site visit, an informal site visit, took place on October the 5th, 2024. And a number of us met together. Many are in this room right here. So what we have on this presentation is a visual notation of what the cemetery looked like then. And so what you will see are the interment of many of our loved ones from Campbell's Funeral Home and also Barry Owadi Funeral Home. And it is comprised of the 4 churches that we had talked about earlier. Calvary Baptist Church, organized in 1892 in Kilmarnock, Virginia, as you know, one of the 4 churches, and this is what it looks like today, where Pastor Samuel Aaron Kane is the pastor at Calvary Baptist Church. New St. John's Baptist Church, organized in 1910, also located in Kilmarnock, Virginia, and there you see the founder, Dr. Daniel Harrison Chamberlain, and that is what New St. John's Baptist Church looked at back then. If you see at the bottom, you'll see the photo credit, James E.C. Norris, M.D. So this is what New St. John's Baptist Church looked like, organized in 1910. This is what it looks like today. The picture on the left looks just like a postcard. Our pastor there at New St. John's Baptist Church is Pastor Peyton Waller Sr., and the picture on the right is what New St. John's Baptist Church looks like today. This is Mount Vernon Baptist Church in Whitestone, Virginia, founded in 1893. And another relative of mine is here with me and one of my classmates, Valerie Palmer Rich. She and I were consulting on this, and this is what Mount Vernon looked like at that time. Mount Vernon Baptist Church, it did burn down. In what year was that, Valerie? Back in the day, it's safe to say that it burned down, and it was rebuilt. And on the right, you see where it looks today, what it looks like today, and Pastor Gernard Reed is the pastor there. Mr. Albert Terry Wright, the principal of A.T. Wright High School, this is included historically as A.T. Wright High School is located on the property of Mount Vernon Baptist Church. The community and church members worked very hard to get the historical recognition. Many of you all remember hearing about A.T. Wright High School. It closed in 1959, and that is when Brookvale High School opened up. And these are the historical markers that the community worked so hard for, that are there on the grounds of Mount Vernon Baptist Church today. Sharon Baptist Church, located in Weems, Virginia, was organized in 1898, and this is literally what it shares. By its founders, through the grace of God and inspiration of the Holy Spirit, the current building dates back to the 1950s, and we have one of the members here today, my high school teacher and fellow historian, you can smile, Sandra Gaskin-Smyer, she is here. And this is what Sharon Baptist Church looks like today. Pastor Dale Buns is the pastor there, and his wife, Reverend Kim Buns, is also in clergy at Sharon Baptist Church. So this is the old St. John's Baptist Church. Can you see okay? Yes. Cemetery. Find a Grave website. You all may be familiar with the Find a Grave websites. And when you drive up to the cemetery, you will see these first two rows right on the property, and the casters are there. And was that you, Mr. Seeger? Yes, yes, and that's where, and it's fairly well attended and groomed, as you can see. This is what it looked like in October when we went back there. As you can see, it's very wooded. You see lots of leaves, a lot of undergrowth and brush there. What we will get into now, some of the pictures, you see the different types of gravesite markers. Some are the rusted metals and tins. You may see marble, you may see quartz. There are many depressions you can see where, with the weather over the years, with the rains, where it's washed away, a lot of it. Brenda can tell you historically the difference between vaults and other forms of the burial sites. And some have headstones, many do not. Some have headstones and footstones. So you can see Mr. Spencer Ball. We do not know what his birth date was, but you can see where he transitioned, October 15, 1937. And this is a good opportunity, if I may. One of our virtual attendees, Margaret Peggy Hill, she wrote a substantial book, which is referenced later in the PowerPoint presentation, Remembrances of Grave Sites, where she did a lot of research, did a lot of exploration for grave sites here in Lancaster. That book is available at the Lancaster, Virginia Historical Society. She additionally added a supplemental index to it with an update. I want to say in 2020, she may have an opportunity to address that later, but that book can be located at the Lancaster, Virginia Historical Society. John F. Conquest, many of you all may remember Simon Conquest. I always enjoy listening to Brenda. She reminds me of my mom. I always tell her she has a vault a wealth of knowledge, of historical knowledge up here. And we can start off talking about the weather, and several conversations later, I've learned so much just listening to her. So if you can get in a conversation with her, this is a gold mine here. You can see where his is made. He does have a headstone. Look at the date on that, birth date. He's one of the ones, 1887. You see the two types of different stones there. Curry on the left, I could not locate the first name of that one. I'm sure we can find out more research. And you can see on the right, there is an elaborate, some of the headstones had elaborate designs. Harriet Ann Pinkett Curry, it's always interesting, 1868. And you can see the leaves and the foliage and the forestry that's built up around the gravesite. Spencer C. Fauntleroy, 1872. Still intact. Some of the headstones, you'll see cracks in them. And a part of the project that we are collaborating with the Virginia Department of Historic Resources on, not only to clean it, to restore it, to preserve it, but help with maintaining it and perhaps restoration of some of the broken, so they will have a place for sacred burial ground. Now, I don't know if you can tell on the left, there's a headstone, and then at the foot of it, where it says SCF, this is one with the headstone and the footstone. To the right, you see an enlarged picture of the initials SCF. Catherine Gaskins, 1838. And there are other names, I don't know if you can read it. Catherine Gaskins, 1838 through 1905. Fanny Johnston, 1860-1900, and Elizabeth Johnson, 1872-1910. So you see the difference in the markings. The one on the left, Charles Frank Morris. The one on the right, it was broken, and we tried really hard to be able to capture what it read. We were not successful. More research, but you can see how over time what that looks like today. Luther H. Nickens. This one is interesting because it looks like it's handwritten. It's not inscribed. If you can see it clearly, it is actually handwritten on there. And the date is 1887 through 1929. This is Pastor Samuel A. Kane. He and I were in the woods together, among other individuals. So you can see where we are just really going through the woods and just trying to find what we can find. So you all have to tell him when you see him, we saw you. We saw you in your element. Another type of marker, Benjamin Pettis. Does that name, that last surname, does that sound familiar to anyone in here? Pettis? Brenda, does that name sound familiar to you? Benjamin Pettis, P-E-T-T-U-S?
Football?
Pettis?
Football?
Football? Oh,
That's better, my bad.
okay. I can see at the bottom, if you can see Barry Owadi, but the last, that's an unusual name, Pettis, P-E-T-T-U-S.
I'm not familiar.
Okay,
Name.
okay.
I'm not familiar.
Other than football, as Mr. Siegel put it.
Selma,
Yes.
that's a white guy.
Ophelia Nickens Penn. That's your cousin, I heard that, yes. 1899, and that's still in fairly good shape. Okay, you see where it's grown on these two headstones. The one on the left has a cross, but you can see where some of them just have initials.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Are you up on Harris Road with these pictures? No.
Yes.
You are?
We're in the woods. Yes. As they would say, we were deep in the woods.
You got to like, when you turn on Calvary Lane, go down a little bit, then go straight back to your left. Because you can't, if you keep going straight ahead, there's a ravine.
Yes.
I should play a little boy off you hunting. Yeah. I know.
Yes.
Now, I think I've never been that deep, nor paying attention. And I do know the lovely road you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't it? Again, another one. Oh, I'm sorry.
And you have to be, pretty much almost past the Interfaith Building. You know what that is from the main highway. So you see how far back you are in the woods.
We walked far back, and you walked even further back.
down that logging road.
Yeah, that's a
That go,
good way.
I went so far, I stopped walking. But
It comes up to the power line.
that's a questionable area there.
Yeah,
You know, it's a questionable area that we gotta
I agree.
investigate.
I agree with
Because,
you on that.
The property behind that, if you go all the way into that logging road, it belongs to Ties In. That's where it's listed.
Once you hit the power line, you keep
You
getting.
keep right back that logging road, just keep going and going and going.
Ties in,
Yeah,
Ties
because
in
it goes
over there.
to the Golden Eagle back there, see? You just gotta keep walking, just keep walking.
you come right
How
up to
far
that.
back did you walk?
You would.
Not that far.
You didn't walk that far back.
Yeah, it's a long way.
We walked, we did walk.
That's even not the way.
But it was a good day in October when we walked back there. This is a sampling of some of our beloved military. It's certainly not all inclusive, but this is a sampling. Private George H. Carter, you see the date, 1897, World War I.
And that's those that know Kathy Thompson. Kathy Thompson, that's her grandfather.
And Kathy Thompson goes to Calvary Baptist Church.
She's the office administrator, right?
Did you, everyone hear Cousin Brenda?
Yes.
I told you.
Talking about Rudy's wife? No. No.
Curtis Thompson wife.
Curtis was.
Curtis wife. Right.
Private First Class William H. Chin.
What's the date?
Yeah.
That's,
1918 through December 1974.
That's not the William that
no, that's,
yeah.
An older,
right.
an elder, U.S. Army. James S.W. Penn, June 22nd, 1920, June 4th, 1944, served in the World War II.
But Ophelia's husband. Ophelia Penn's husband.
Ophelia Nickens Penn,
Yeah.
we talked about her earlier, her husband,
If I remember correctly, Ophelia Penn was the church clerk from Calvary.
for Calvary.
Yeah.
And I believe Pastor Samuel Kane is related to the Nickens as well. S1 Samuel Waters, March 10, 1910, September 25th, 1978, U.S. Navy, World War II. The Waters, you all know the Waters. Buena Vista Wiggins, isn't that an interesting name? Look at the date. Of course, we see the date, March 1887, November 1898. But look at the intricate markings. Do you see where it's Wiggins and then right above it? Remember we talked about the intricate markings and the designs on some of these headstones? Young, 11 years old. There's one on here even younger, I believe. John H. Wiggins, son of John Henry, this one, and Susan Wiggins, look at the date, August 1903, November 1904. You see the crack? Remember, I referred to the crack that's in some of the headstones and the stonework? You see? This is Margaret Peggy Hill. I referred to her earlier. She's the one who wrote this book, In Remembrance, Gravestone Inscriptions and Burials of Lancaster County. Then she did the supplemental full name index. She has done such an elaborate compiling of this information. This book is available at Lancaster, Virginia Historical Society. Mrs. Hill, do you have any comments that you would like to share about this? She's very familiar with Old St. John Baptist Church Cemetery.
Well, let me clear up about the book. I had a co-compiler,
Yes.
Clyde Radcliffe, who
Yes.
now lives in Richmond.
Yes.
And the person who did the all-name index is Mrs. Margaret Forrester, who is a volunteer at the Historical Society.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to share with you that one of the members of our group, my son-in-law, Peter Larrabee, has found an interesting group of topographical maps of the area. The cemetery is clearly outlined with jagged lines on each of these topo maps, but one of them, and I think it's the one that dates to 1916, shows the black symbol of a church a short distance down Harris Road toward what we now have as Route 3. So I don't know if that's accurate. I have no idea. Obviously, more research needs to be done. Personally, I think the next step, 2 steps. One would be a survey, and the other the title search.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This next book, written by Carolyn H. Jett, many of you all may remember her. She was a member of the Lancaster, Virginia Historical Society and author. This book is up here, Lancaster County, Virginia, where the river meets the bay. It is also available at the Lancaster, Virginia Historical Society. This book is here because it references the old St. John's Baptist Church Cemetery, as well as some other churches. You all recognize who this gentleman is?
No.
I still call him Dr. Jimmy Norris, though he does not want me to call him that. And I said, I know no other way to do this. Fight on my soul. This book is available, and it also references historically Old St. John's Baptist Church Cemetery, as well as his extensive research for the entire community, not just that church, but other churches as well. On behalf of this initiative, this was an initiative that was started decades ago, and when Dr. Norris reached out to me, he had hoped that I would be able to curate and to get the 4 pastors of the churches together, which is what I agreed to. And so that worked out well, and we are moving forward. But on behalf and in the spirit of sacred history and community collaboration, this concludes this historical presentation of the Old St. John's Baptist Church Cemetery Restoration Project. We thank you for your attendance, your hearing, and your viewing of this historical initiative. We welcome you and we invite you to join this community historical project and endeavor. Please speak with one of the historical initiative representatives. The next slide represents. There is a clipboard. We are actively interested in seeking active and able-bodied volunteers who would be willing to support and collaborate on this project in any capacity. All of us have skill sets and talents, and you know your community pretty well. You may know of some businesses and organizations who may like to donate their services or equipment or their stewardship of time to help with this. There are 2 clipboards here. Reverend Judy Thompson is going to pass around. If you are interested in volunteering with us, please indicate. The last column says yes. Please don't feel compelled to. We are very humbly seeking any support. And if you have any other questions, we'll be happy to respond to them. These are the members thus far. We welcome more. James E.C. Norris, MD, Pastor Dale Bunns, pastor of Sharon Baptist Church, and Reverend Kim Bunns, Pastor Samuel Kane, Calvary Baptist Church, Pastor Gennard Reed, Mount Vernon Baptist Church, Pastor Peyton Waller Sr., New St. John's Baptist Church, Pastor Rodney Waller. He happened to be the pastor of Sharon Baptist Church when this historical initiative was started a number of years ago. Is that right, Ms. Mauer? He is now, if you don't know, he is pastoring at the First African American Baptist Church in Richmond, Virginia, still doing wonderful things in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Pastor Judy Thompson, and your church?
Campbell Presbyterian in Weems.
In Weems. Pastor Tyron Williams. Is it Tyron or Tyron?
Tyron.
Tyron. Thank you for hosting.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having us here. And maybe when we meet again, perhaps one of the 4 churches in the community would be willing to host.
That's a great idea.
Is that a cool beans? Of course, Brenda Campbell, our vault, myself, Margaret Peggy Hill, Elizabeth Larrabee, that's Peggy's daughter. She was there as well. Peter Larrabee, her son-in-law, he is a geologist. Deacon William Lee, on behalf of Calvary Baptist Church. Sandra Smyer, could you raise your hands? There you go. Tina Webb is not here, but she is a family member, and she was also there with us on the site visit. Remember when we showed you the picture of Find a Grave website and the 2 rows of graves with the casters? That's Tina's family as well as others. Thank you all to the Interracial Conversations of the Northern Neck. The Northern Neck Baptist Association is in support of this project, and of course the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. I think Joanna Green has left, but she is willing to help us, as well as the Baptist General Convention of Virginia. Are there any questions for any of us?
Yes. I would have assumed, this is probably naivete on my part, but I would have assumed that each of the churches would have, at one time, had burial records of their parishioners who were buried in the cemetery. Is that not true? And if it is true, apparently those records no longer exist, or are there some records, or do we know?
Well, let's reach out to the church representative. Deacon Lee?
I would have to defer to Brenda. I don't know of any, I have not seen any records at the church.
I have not, I was trying to think. I haven't seen any records. I haven't seen any records. Because even though it was named Old St. John Cemetery, it was more like community cemetery. So not everybody buried there was a member of either of the 4 churches like we have now. You know, that's going on now. People are being buried in our church cemeteries that are not necessarily members of the church. So I don't think that, well, let me back up. I know Calvary doesn't have it. And Sharon burned at one time. Mount Vernon burned at one time.
3 times. 3 times? Mount Vernon burned 3 times?
3 times.
3 times. And Sharon burned twice.
Yeah, Sharon burned in 1950.
So if they had records, I'm sure they were destroyed.
Dr. Norris, would you have any indication of that question? Were you able to hear that question?
Okay, no, I'm not aware of any records kept by any of the churches, beyond what Brenda has stated. I think that what might be worthwhile doing, you could probably get some of the high school students to assist you with this, but years ago, the Rappahannock Record had a section called the Colored News. And in that Colored News, I found a trove of material, and they often mentioned who died and where they were buried. So if someone would want to go through the archives of the Rappahannock Record, which I think goes back to 1925, they would find a lot of information about who's buried there. Also, there was a paper called the Virginia Citizen, and that, I'm not sure what year the Virginia Citizen closed, but it was beginning in 1895 that the Virginia Citizen began publishing, and they have some records too of burials among the colored population in Lancaster County. So those are the only 2 sources I can offer you. Thank you.
Thank you.
When Old St. John turned to New St. John, how long was it left there? I don't see how you could put up a structure and not have documentation. If it went from Old St. John to New St. John, or was it when it was Old St. John? No documentation, no deed, no nothing, just built. I mean, it's kind of spooky.
Good question. You said it's kind of spooky?
Yes, it is.
The only thing I can tell you is, at New St. John, Dr. Chamberlain, who was the first pastor, is buried at the back door, not in the cemetery. He's at the back door of the church because the day that he was supposed to be buried, we had the funeral. But it rained so bad, we couldn't get back in the cemetery. And so that's why he is buried not in New St. John Cemetery that's behind the church now.
Right.
And that's why he's buried up at the back door, because they said bury him at the back door, and when the weather got better, the church would move him back in the cemetery. But he was the first person that should have been buried in New St. John Cemetery.
Did he pass the old St. John?
No, he was at New St. John. He passed, yes, he passed at Old St. John. But then when they built the new church, he moved up the new church. In fact, he built the new church.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Thank you.
My question is, we're hearing about so many times that the churches burned. Were they set on fire, or were they like candles?
Well, you have to
I'm
understand
trying
that
to think, why?
back that time they had wood stoves.
Yeah.
Wood stoves for heat.
You know, for heat.
The first time Mount Vernon Baptist Church burned down, that was in 1898. It was struck by lightning.
And I think it's Mount Olive, didn't that burn because it was struck by
Yes.
lightning too?
Well, I wasn't here,
No.
but Trustee
It was
Dolores,
struck by lightning in the early 80s, but they had already started building the meeting up here, and the church was vacant at that time. The one down the road there.
by the old cemetery.
Yeah, about a half block down the road.
See, I don't think they know that this is some people don't know that this is the new Mount Olive. The old Mount Olive was down the road.
We were referring to that earlier, just in the parking lot, because the old Mount Olive Cemetery is down the
Down the
road.
road.
Yes.
I learned something today. And keeping in mind that it wasn't necessarily uncommon for some of the churches to burn down back then for a number of reasons. And then, of course, any documentation and records were burned as well. And then, over the years, when church clerks perhaps kept some of the documentation in their homes, and then when they passed away, if it wasn't meaningful to the next individual, a lot of things were kind of tossed out, or when they rebuilt or had a cleaning day, some things were tossed out. So.
And also, some churches may not have had historians that maintain records of pastors as well as the deceased members or what have you.
Francine, thank you for your wonderful presentation. What do you see as next steps for this project?
Well, I think clearly we've talked about some next steps, some active research into things, ongoing things that we need to do. Obviously, we're still maintaining close contact with the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. They give very good advisement as far as the next steps. There are grants available that we will be researching as well, but it sounds like we need to do some intensive research for sure. What we had hoped to do, what we had talked about when we went into the cemetery, when was it, March the 4th? Not bad, not bad. It was a nice day. We had talked about the need of getting some active and able-bodied volunteers who could help us to go in and start cleaning up while the weather was permissive. We also talked about the need, of course, to do research, title research and the boundaries and all of that as well. So it sounds like it's going to be several components and collaboration. Would you all say that, members of Brenda? Do you have anything you'd like to suggest? Dr. Norris? And I think you all have made some recommendations, and Ms. Peggy Hill as well.
I did not hear your question.
The question was, what do we see as active next steps, like what I like to call action steps of what we need to do next? Where do we see this project going? Is that right?
My opinion is surveying and title searching.
Dr. Norris?
I agree with Mrs. Hill, and also I think really these projects cost, and I'm not sure how much we can depend on the Department of Historical Resources. And I think that we ought to move toward opening a bank account to solicit the contributions from various people who are interested, as well as many people who have ancestors buried in the cemetery, to build a fund, because it's going to be considerably expensive to not only clear the cemetery, but also to, I think you're going to have to mark the boundaries with some kind of stone, and then I think you'll need some type of way to memorialize the people whose graves are there and not marked. I mean, there's no gravestone or headstone. And I think that you'll need to have a memorial to those people, and the names will have to be inscribed, and that's going to all cost a lot of money. So I think that you really should think about setting up a bank account, and you have to give this organization a name, and Ms. Peggy Hill came up with a great name. I like very much. It's called Friends of the Old St. John Cemetery. And it could be done under the auspices of the Northern Neck Baptist Association. I think we have to clear that with Reverend Dr. Williams. But that's the next move I would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that I've shared this information with the Northern Neck Baptist Association. The first vice moderator, Pastor Carolyn Fisher, has been involved. We've shared a bit of information with her, but Dr. Hayden is very supportive of this effort as well. So we will continue to share information with them as we move forward, but they are encouraging the individual churches within the association to lend their support as well for this initiative, because one of the things we really want to do is to honor those who are deceased and to provide trying to find the right word, grave sites and recognition that of which they are worthy, because they should be memorialized in a very professional manner. And because so much has gone over, has happened over the years, and especially when we consider the times in which they lived and all of the things that they endured during all of those years, the days of Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Movement and all of those sorts of things that gave of themselves in service to the community and to the church. And I think it honors them that we would do all that we can to ensure that whatever enshrinement there is, that it is something that is done in a very professional manner.
That it is worthy.
And definitely worthy, yes.
That it is worthy.
So I encourage everyone, if you just have a little time to volunteer to assist in this effort, whether it's doing research, whether it's going to the site with the cleaning or what have you, or any other areas in which there is a need for this particular initiative, I encourage all of us to get involved because it speaks to who we are as a society as well. We walk along and we see the beautiful graves, but then oftentimes we don't, and many people in the Northern Neck, well, in Kilmarnock, in Northumberland County, Lancaster County, are not even aware that that cemetery exists.
That is true.
So spreading the word, and I would encourage businesses also to be approached, because they are part of the community as well, and they should want the best that this community has to offer. And I think we should do all that we can to ensure that that happens. We may be somewhat limited in time or what have you, but it's just like trying to clear a room full of chairs. One person to each take a chair. It can be cleared much faster than if one person or two people are doing it all themselves. Because collectively we can accomplish so much more. And we all have resources that we might be able to use. Maybe not necessarily financially, but just your knowledge base, just your ability to be on the computer, to do research, to talk to people, to gather additional information, because we all don't know the same people, do we? And because we have our own networks, a lot of information can be gathered just engaging in conversation about this particular initiative. And we may find out that we know somebody who knows somebody who knows who was someone that was buried there. So you never know. So it's incumbent upon all of us.
As the project advances, we'll coordinate with Francine and put the call out as projects, as the need for people to do certain aspects of the project arise. And we'll use our interracial conversations distribution list and the names on these lists. So we'll periodically put out a call for helpers. Also, Francine, when we had the walkthrough in March, Joanna Green mentioned that for certain aspects of the work that has to be done, she can provide training. Apparently there are, well, not apparently, there are a lot of simply sunken graves that are unmarked, and Joanna and the VDHR can provide training to a group of us on how to literally walk through and use your toes to feel where there might be a grave, to help make sure that we recognize all the children of God who are buried there.
And we don't want to dismantle anything any further. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just going to say that Nominee Hall and in Westmoreland, and their slave quarters, every October they have the descendants of the family that Robert Carter III manumitted and so that set free. They come back and they have been over the time finding and doing this very thing in terms of a cemetery that wasn't, I think, as set up as recently as that. It was during slave times. But they have recreated, not recreated, but they have found old slave burial sites. And so that's called the quarter. So that's where we meet and they talk, and they have members of the descendants speak, and then they have at the Nominee Hall play at where the house was. It's been burned. But anyway, the Arnst family has provided that. They probably would have some suggestions for you because they've been doing this. It's called the Historical Society of the Northern Neck, and it's in Montrose.
Yes.
And so they have experience with what you're doing, and they would have suggestions for you.
Thank you. I'd also like to share that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Lancaster, they've just completed a restoration project on their church site, which is near Brookvale High School. They have offered their services as well. And the forestry there was very, very dense and thick. And to look at it now, it is different. That's the Moreau Nickens Cemetery. they have offered, yes dear.
I'm sorry, did you finish?
I was just going to say, before I forget, I just want to reiterate what he shared, and if you all could kindly, when you leave, just share this information with your churches, your colleagues, your family members. Perhaps if there is a need, perhaps some of us can get together, some of the members of the initiative, maybe if we're invited to your church, if you think it would help, or to an organization or businesses or stakeholders who are not here tonight, to be able to share this information. Because it is a project of community collaboration. I say that quite a bit, in the spirit of community collaboration. Donna? Yes?
I just wanted to say, most cultures honor their dead and don't let this happen. So we can correct that. But the second thing I'd like to say is to the ministers, to reach out to the young people.
Yes.
We have a great resource here. I mean, young kids in the summer, they have energy, they want to do stuff. It would be a great opportunity to get as many young people as possible.
You just gave me a great idea.
Okay. Good.
I'm taking notes, I'm writing it down.
The Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, they need to be involved.
I think that would be a phenomenal opportunity for
You
them.
just stole my idea.
I will say that the youth and young adults of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they were a part of their cemetery restoration project. Very excited. I think they shared this story with us where there were some little girls and they took, serving spoons out of the kitchen at the church because they wanted to be able to help to dig, and so they actually had large serving spoons to try to dig up.
I got a question for you. I don't know if you know or not. Did you guys put those markers? Those markers are fresh in that graveyard. Someone just put them there.
Survey markers.
Yeah, and they're running down like, once they wanted to run the road through there. They approached us about that. I said, you gotta dig up new graves. But they went around. You can see how they...
It's graves on both sides of the markers. I walked back, that's why I was walking back.
Who put them, what are they marking?
We got that's what we got to figure out.
He's researching, or we're researching.
We're working on that. So something's not right.
Yes.
Philip Mumford.
Philip Mumford.
He's executive director.
Yeah, wherever the people going nowhere.
Personal contact.
I'll reach out to them.
It takes an active village. Yes.
I don't know, I probably just missed the answer to my question, but you showed a picture of the map itself of 3.57 acres, and then you had an overlay. Y'all have that 15 acres, approximately 15 acres, by walking through, looking at the grave, the area?
That was based upon her conjecture. When I say her, I'm referring to the archaeologist from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources.
Okay.
That was not based on anything formal or anything legal. That was her best guess conjecture.
Of the amount of graves
of that area. There are a lot of graves.
Yes.
And they were equally surprised. They were very excited. And I should also reference Brad McDonald because he was the other archaeologist there from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. And the machine that they used was called a LiDAR, which gave the typographical aerial view of the grave. So, and it could go down radar under the ground as well. There's the, there is another, radar system for that as well. But they kept saying they were amazed at the number of graves. And in our estimation, and from all the research that's been done, 200 plus, and they were thinking, I could foresee it being more than 200 plus. They were really amazed. And they indicated that this was a pretty large project compared to some of the ones. But it's doable. You did hear her say that we can do this, you all. We can do this. I don't know what our timeline is, but I'm a great respecter of time.
Thank y'all so much. Let's give all of our presenters and everyone. It's just like trying to clear a room full of chairs. One person to each take a chair. It can be cleared much faster than if one person or two people are doing it all themselves. Because collectively we can accomplish so much more.